Our second question will be answered first by Ms. Taylor. And this is the question. How will the school board address the idea of excessive testing and encourage the state to decrease the demands of such testing?
This is a great question because I have to say that as a parent, I hate all the testing. It makes my daughter stressed out, and she's a really calm kid. It makes kids just nervous. It makes teachers nervous because what if their kids don't do well, and how does that relate to how they get, what kind of score they get on their APPR? It's very tough all around. However, the reality is that New York State considers testing an important part of instruction. Do I agree with that 100%? No. But it provides an evaluation of student mastery of content and skills in various courses of study and helps shape future instruction. And that's what their idea is. The problem with this is that all schools are required to have a 95% participation rate in New York State. And failure to comply with this actually may have a negative impact on the school district and its scores in their annual, I'm trying to remember, I want to not use just the AYP, but it's like an annual performance for the school district. And if not enough children take this test, then we could lose state aid that relates to that. So that is an important factor that everybody might not, realize because they're not looking at it from that perspective, but more from the perspective of a parent. As a school board member, I definitely want to watch the trend. I feel that parents feel empowered right now to opt out of these tests, and I think that it's a good thing to watch. I don't know why Rockville Center is not concerned about whether or not their school district actually continues to get state funding. Maybe because they don't get as much state funding or rely on it as much as we do. So it is something to consider. Thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Yes, okay. I'm not going to say that all testing is bad, but there's several components that involve the testing. First of all, the community has to realize that. We get questioned constantly, how come our grades aren't as good as Rockville Center, or as good as Oceanside, or as good as Half Hollow Hills, whatever. I think we spend the least amount of money. We're the second lowest spending district in Nassau County, and our kids do very well on tests and graduation rate. So I think we do a good job. So the community sort of has to wrap their head around not comparing apples and oranges. That's number one. Number two, our New York State School Boards Association now has a campaign going, which they started about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, where we all signed on to sign a petition to give to the legislators that we need to stop the testing. The problem is our Commissioner of Education fervently believes in the testing, and so does his assistant superintendent, commissioner. And they're all from, I think both of them are from charter schools. They're not even from public education schools. Not that charter schools aren't public education. So, yeah, but technically they are. So this is what we're dealing with, and this is what's being shoved down. Besides the fact that Arnie Duncan also believes in testing, who is the Federal Education Commissioner. So we're fighting a losing battle here. But I think it will help if people just keep protesting. And it's got to come from you guys besides us. They consider us special interest, and they don't listen to us.
Okay, I touched on this a little bit in my last answer.
A little louder.
Sure. I touched on this a little bit in my last answer. And I am aware that the state is saying that if you don't have a 95% of your students taking it, they may cut state aid. However, unless people protest and whole communities stand up, this high-stakes testing isn't going to end. And I am not against assessments. I believe we have to have assessments for our children because we have to see that they're learning. But the assessments have to be valid assessments and show us how our kids are learning. And they have to be available to teachers to look at after and to students to see so they can see where their strengths and weaknesses are and they can learn from the tests, not just sort of this corporate education testing that's going on now. So I am going to stick to my last answer that this board should be a leader in protesting the high-stakes testing and do what it can to stop the high-stakes testing, not assessments, because we need assessments to see how our kids are doing, but to stop this corporate high-stakes testing.
Mr. Pratt?
I share a lot of the same opinions that the rest of the candidates up here do. I think, you know, the board can advocate to the state. We as board members could advocate to the state against the testing, but I think the more powerful voice is the voice of the community. I also share the concern that, you know, New York State has said if we don't have 95% participation, there's, you know, it could impact aid. So I don't necessarily agree with the movement of opting out only if that's going to harm the schools. And so, you know, I can't really say anything different or new than what's been said here. But, you know, as a parent, I would advocate, you know, and again, I also actually, you know, in terms of the testing, I think a certain amount of testing is a good thing. I think it's the excessive testing and then what the actual grades are used for. If you use them as an assessment of progress or, you know, of the school, I think that's okay. But you're using it to grade teacher performance, I think, is not appropriate in those situations. So not against the testing. I think, you know, we don't want to teach to the test. I think that's bad. I think it's pretty common belief that is not benefiting our children. But as a school board, I think we have to really take, you know, what the law says and implement that. So that's my opinion.